So last week we went over how to take good shots on our smartphones. So today is going to be all about now editing the picture. So we already took the picture and now we are going to edit the photo in our camera roll. So if you have an Android or a Samsung, your app icon that has all of your photos looks like a red icon with a flower. And if you have an iPhone or an iPad, it should look like a rainbow flower. And inside of that should have the different pictures that you have taken. If you haven't took a picture, then, after the PowerPoint today, you can practice taking pictures and editing the photo. But we are going to be inside of these apps to do the PowerPoint today. So just make sure you find these apps before we get started, or you can always just follow along and do it on your own time later. So one of the most important things that I do want to go over that everyone should get familiar with is cropping, rotating, and flipping a photo. And if you are on this call today and have an Android, Samsung phone, don't worry. I do have a slide for those who have those phones as well. So you're not going to be, excluded. It's just after this slide. So why do people crop or rotate or flip photos? Well, for example, when you take a picture, sometimes a stranger could be in the background. So now the photo looks funny, right? You want to take a picture of a nice monument, a nice scenery, but then in the background, you have some stranger's head in the photo. So people want to crop them out. Same thing with rotating. Sometimes photos look better in a portrait mode or in landscape mode. So there's different reasons why people would crop their photos or rotate and flip them. So if you do want to follow along with me right now, make sure you go into your camera roll and you choose any photo that you like. So once you choose a photo in your camera roll, all the way at the top for iPhones, you do have the word edit. Edit is going to give you all the different photo editing functions for your iPhone or your iPad. So when you click on edit, at the bottom, you should see brand new icons, different tools to use to edit your photo. But once again, you must go into your photo gallery and choose a picture to see this option. Anybody have any questions on that before I go over the tools? Okay. So once we do click on edit, you will finally get a screen that looks similar like this. Once again, this is for iPhones and iPads. And you kind of get some little icons at the bottom where it says, once again, hold on, I'm gonna do it with you and I'm going to pretend to edit my photos. At the bottom, you kind of have like a sun icon, 3 circles, and a square kind of looking icon all the way at the bottom. And we are going to focus on that kind of square icon, that third icon at the bottom of the screen. That is essentially our crop photo. Anytime we tap on that button, we're telling our phone, we're telling our iPad that we want to either crop our photo or level our photo. So when we want to level something, basically your photo might be a little crooked. So you would like to level it out to make it straight. So if you see on the screen right now, I have a blue arrow pointing at one of the icons on the screen. What that icon does is leveling the photo. So if it's a little crooked, where that arrow is pointing on the screen, you can tap on that. And with your finger, you can slowly move the slider right or left to level your photo out, to make it straight. So what do I mean by the slider? On the screen, I just circled what the slider is. It's like a bunch of little small lines, and you can use one finger. Make sure you only have one finger touching the screen, and you use that finger and move it left to right, and you're gonna watch your picture start to move, might start to turn a little bit. If your photo's already straight, then you don't really need to use that function. Does anybody have questions on that? All right, so that's leveling the photo. And right next to those icons, which we just leveled our photo, there is now a vertical and horizontal button. So I'm gonna circle on the screen right now what is the vertical and horizontal button. So those two icons there is once again other ways to level your photo. So if we use the middle button, which is, you can see right now that your picture is going to get a little straight, a little wider. If you're following along and doing it while you're moving your finger left and right. And the third icon, you can see it's going to turn it a little bit. I am going to screen share my screen after the PowerPoint, and we can also do it together. But all these three icons are straightening your picture depending on how it's crooked. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay. Next, we have flipping and rotating a photo. So we want to look at the top left-hand corner of our screen, and we have two icons here. On the left side, we have our flip icon to flip our picture. So if you just tap it, you can see that the picture is going to flip to the other side. And then next to the flip icon, we have our rotation icon. And if we tap on the rotation icon, you're going to see the photo rotate 90 degrees. Usually people do this if they want it in portrait mode or in landscape mode, but these are where to find the icons. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay, and then the last is cropping, which is the most important. So how do people crop photos? So as you can see, if we're still in the crop icon, right? So make sure you're still right here. I just circled on the screen. Make sure you're still here and not clicking anywhere else. You're going to see that you have 4 squares on your picture, 4 white squares. You can drag any of those white squares to crop your photo. So you're gonna use one finger and drag one of those corners, and you're gonna see as the picture begins to crop away, and you can move it anywhere that you like. Does anybody have questions on that? And the most important part is when you are finished cropping or flipping or rotating your photo, you do want to click on the word done when you are finished. And the word done should be in the bottom right-hand corner. Once again, I am going to screen share my phone later so you could see it more in action, like live, right? Instead of seeing on the pictures here. So that's cropping and rotating and flipping for iPhones. And if no one has any questions on that, I am going to show the same thing for those who have Androids on the call today. For those who have Android phones, you do have the same functions like the iPhone. However, your icons are just a bit different than those that look like an iPhone. So for example, those who have an Android phone, you want to find your pencil icon. The pencil icon is your edit button. So iPhones click on the word edit. Android phones have to find that pencil icon. Once you find the pencil icon, you do want to click on it to get your rotation, flipping, and cropping button. So on the screen, I'm going to circle the cropping button for Androids. And as you can see, if you're following along with iPhones, it is the same exact square icon. So it does have the same, similar features like an iPhone does. And on the screen here, I did put an arrow to show you where is the rotate button and where is the flip button. So the little circle that kind of looks like a U-turn arrow is the rotate button. And next to that is the flip icon. Does anybody that have Android phones have a question on this? And then to crop on an Android phone should be exactly the same way like an iPhone, where once again, you want to make sure you edit the photo by clicking your pencil icon. And you could click on any of the four corners of your picture, just like an iPhone. Use one finger and drag the corner to crop a photo. And when you are finished, you do want to click the word save in the top right-hand corner. So iPhones use the word done when they're finished editing. Android, Samsung phones use the word save, and that should be at the top right-hand corner. Does anybody have questions on that? Any Android, Samsung? Okay, perfect. So another thing that people do to apply and edit their photos is applying filters. So filters are going to be adjusting the color and the tones of your picture to make them more vibrant, to make them more dramatic. You can change the temperature to make it more cool tone, warm tone, or you could even put them black and white. And both Android and iPhones have this function. There are many, many ways to, edit your photos, but since these come already pre-installed with your phone, it is important that you do take advantage of them. Of course, you could always download different third-party apps on your phone. There's millions of different phone editing apps. But today I am going to go over what's already in your phone that you can do without having to download or purchase anything. So iPhone filters are going to be similar to Android filters when we go over both of them. But once again, we're going to do the same exact steps. We're going to find a photo that we want to add a pretty filter on it. So maybe you have a picture that you want to give it more color to it. Maybe you want to find a picture and make it dramatic by adding a black and white filter. So just go ahead and find a picture of anything in your camera roll. You want to click on the word edit. Once you click on the word edit, instead of clicking on the square box to crop photos, we want to find the 3 circle icon. So on the screen, I have a blue arrow kind of pointing to what you should click on. If you do have a newer kind of model phone, the circles are going to look a little bit different, but it is the middle icon here on the screen. So it's like 3 little circles. And if you have an Android phone on the call today, you can definitely follow along because you as well have the same exact icon. It's the 3 circles. Once you click on the 3 circles, you are going to see different options on top of it. And with your finger, you can drag it to the left and you can watch as different filters are going to be put on your photo. So for example, you have filters called Vivid Warm, Vivid Cool, Dramatic, Dramatic Warm, and you're even going to see black and white photos. Does anybody have any questions on that? So those are the pre-installed filters with an iPhone or an iPad. So just like with Androids, once again, you want to click on that pencil icon at the bottom of the screen. And just where the arrow is pointing, like I said, you do have a similar icon just like iPhones, which is the 3 circles. And at the top, you could see you have your different filters where you could click on each of those squares and watch the picture change temperature, change tone. It'll be a little bit more dramatic in the colors. Maybe the sky color will get a little darker, a little brighter, depending on the filter that you choose. And once again, anytime you click on something and you want to edit your photo, always try to find the word done or save. If not, your photo's not going to add the filter or any crop or rotate that you've done. Any questions on that? All right, so just like what I was saying, if you're not happy with any of the edits that you made, you can always adjust the settings that you applied. So there is no set in stone filter, right? And even if you put a photo in black and white, you can always go back to that photo and make it back to the original. So as you can see here, this person on the screen was editing their photo. They realized that the edit that they were making, they didn't really like it. So they just found the word cancel and you can go back to the original. Even if you saved the photo and you made it some crazy color, you put it black and white, you change the tone of the picture, you can always click edit and revert it back to the original. So the iPhone and even the Android can always let your photos go back to the original. Even if you cropped it, flipped it, rotated, any changes that you made to the photo can go back. Any questions on that? Okay, so this is going to be the part where I screen share my phone because this is going to kind of be the most complicated part, which is adjusting light and color. So filters are pre-made, right? So you don't really have to worry about you yourself changing the tone, changing the color, because you click on a filter and it does it for you. So this function is like your manual function where you yourself can change the brightness, the exposure, add a border, change the color, the temperature, and you get to add, you know, how much you want with all those different functions. So I'm going to screen share. I have some like photos that I got off from Google where we can see the photos change depending on the things that I do. But before we do that, I'm just gonna go over some of the definitions so you can understand what each of them do before you add them to your photo. So with your iPhone, you have a bunch of different ways to adjust the light in your photo. So you might get a bit confused. iPhone gives you a function to add brilliance, exposure, and brightness, right? So all those three things you can add to make it brighter or darker to your photo. However, we're gonna focus on brilliance because brilliance is going to make your photo richer and more brighter, more vibrant. So let's say you took a picture of a flower and you wanted that flower to look like more pink, more red, right? Because it's springtime. You would add some brilliance in it so it can make the photo pop out. Highlights as well is going to just change the highlights in your photo. So if something is a little bit too dark, you can add highlights to make it brighter. Then we have something which is black point, and black point is only on the iPhone, same as noise reduction. So these two definitions and these two functions are only found with iPhones and iPads. And what black point does is it's going to find the darkest part of your image, and you can make it brighter or you can make it even more darker. But when I show you the examples, when I screen share my phone, you'll get a more idea of what it does. But for example, if there's a really blue, a dark blue in your photo, and you add black point to it, it's going to make that blue very, very dark that it almost becomes black in the photo. Same thing if you have a really dark color and you add less black point to the picture, it's going to make it a little brighter, but then it's also going to kind of wash out the image, and you'll see soon when I show the examples. Any questions so far? Okay, hold sorry. All right. Noise reduction is also a really good thing that iPhone has added. So for example, some pictures that you take in very low light, so maybe you take a picture somewhere in your house where you only have the lamp on, so it's a little low light, or maybe it's a picture you took outside when the sun is going down. You may see that your photo gets a bit grainy, right? It has a little specks around in the picture. So noise reduction is going to eliminate that graininess in your photo and try to make it a bit more high definition, a bit more richer in the photo. If you add noise reduction to your picture, you're actually going to make your picture blurrier. So in the long run, noise reduction, if you do add it, it's more of an aesthetic kind of thing that you would add to your photo. If you really want your photo to be blurry, you can add noise reduction. But usually people add less noise reduction because they do not like that graininess in their photo. Lastly, we have vignette, which is kind of adding a border to your picture. So you're going to create edges throughout your photo. So when you add vignette, you're going to see that all of the four corners of your picture are going to get darker while your subject remains in the center very bright. So in the end, it kind of looks like there's a border around your photo. But I think I'm going to screen share my phone because I think it's better to show it visually how each of these things can affect your photo. So I am going to screen share right now so we can see the differences of what each of these, definitions do when I add it to a photo. But does anybody have any questions so far before I screen share my phone? Anything about photo editing or taking pictures? Does everyone see the screen with the flower, hopefully? Okay, so I am going to start editing the picture and using the different pre-installed filters and then using it manually so you can see the differences. So once again, the pre-installed filters are the icons in the middle of the screen. And you can see as I go through each of the functions, the temperature of the picture is going to change with the flowers on the screen. But these are pre-installed and you really can't make any changes to it. This is what the iPhone does. You know, you can't say, okay, I want to change the brightness in the picture. I actually don't want it to be this vibrant. I want to add a border around this. You can't do that with pre-installed filters. So that's why people like to do it manually on their own. So right next to the 3 circle icons is kind of like a sun icon right next to it. So the first icon at the bottom of the screen. If you have an Android, your icon looks like a little settings gear button. And these are our manual options. So you can see if I use my finger and go left to right, we have exposure, brilliance, highlights, shadows, contrast, brightness, black point, saturation, vibrance, warmth, tint, sharpness, definition, noise reduction, and vignette. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with this one photo. So for example, I feel like this picture is a bit too bright and I want to bring down the brightness. So I can find where it says brightness and where the slider is at the bottom of the screen. I can use one finger and drag it to the left. And while I'm dragging it to the left, you can see actually that a number appears in the circle. -18, -19, 28, and you can go all the way to 100. But if I do -100, now my photo's kind of washed out. It's way, it's too dark now. It kind of lost some life and color to it in the middle. So you don't always want to go too dark, but you do want to maybe stay in the middle range depending on what you want to do. Same thing when you add it all the way to the right. If you add too much brightness to a photo, it is going to become washed out. Now some of the flowers lost their color because they're just way too bright. Some flowers that were yellow are now just, white as the sun, too bright. So if you are gonna add brightness, make sure you're not going too far. Same thing when you lose brightness. So you kind of want to stay in a middle range, maybe 30 and 30 this way, depending on what is, the tone that you want to set for your picture. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay.
Then you push done, but where's done?
All right, so done is in the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay. Can I just ask you?
Alicia, I can't hear you. I think you muted. Yes, yeah. Go ahead.
The wand with the two dots in the beginning, what is that for?
So the wand in the 2 beginnings is your phone going to do it automatically for you. So they're going to create a filter for this photo that they think would make the picture better. Your phone itself. Okay. So I'm showing you how to do it manually, but the wand is your phone saying, I believe, the picture will look better this way. So I clicked on the wand and this is what they believe would look the best when I edit this flower picture.
Huh.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it's the phone trying to be smart and, you know, create their
the
own.
photo before was prettier, more contrast.
Yeah, right.
But thank you.
Yeah, Susan, I will get to you after I do the different functions for this. I'll answer that, Susan. Okay, so let's just quickly, I'm going to show you black point. I think most of these are self-explanatory. I want to just go over these new things that you may have not heard of. So let me just find black point. So once again, with black point, it's going to try to find anything that's dark in your picture and make it darker or brighter. So what I see in my picture, I see that there are some dark points kind of in the middle behind the red flowers and the orange flowers, like in the background. So if I drag my black point to the right, you can see where I just said is becoming darker. So it kind of looks like this photo of the flowers is like a bush that it's never ending because the darkness in the background is becoming more and more. Same thing if I drag my black point to the left side, it's going to make it lighter. So now I can actually see inside of the flower. I can see the greenery where there was dark points. But remember, if you go too far in the black point, you're going to wash out the image. It's going to look too kind of has like a white filter on it. You don't want to make it too much in the black point. But if you just focus on the middle with your eyes, you're going to see it change and make it brighter. Same thing if I drag you all the way to the right and focus on the middle of the image, you can see that it's becoming too dark, like it's almost black in the middle. That's what black point does. It finds the darkest points in your picture and make it darker or lighter. Any questions on that? Okay, the personal preference that I really like to do when I edit photos is saturation and vibrance. So saturation and vibrance are going to make the photo more vivid, give it more color. So sometimes maybe you're outside and you see something really pretty that has a lot of color to it, but then when you take a picture of it on your camera, you realize it's gloomier or not as bright as you thought, that you see it with your own naked eye. So I like to add saturation to it to give it more life. So you can see when I add saturation to this photo, you know, it's becoming more, the colors are becoming more brighter. So once again, from 0 to, I say, 40, you can see that the colors are brighter. They kind of pop out at the screen. If I drag my saturation too far, it's gonna lose all its color. The flowers kind of look like they're dying now, and it will eventually become black and white, the photo. But I like to add a little bit of saturation as well as vibrance to the picture. Vibrance is gonna add a little bit more light to the photo as well as color. And I just like to do that if the photo is a bit too gloomy or a bit too cool. It adds a little bit of color and a little bit of brightness. Any questions on that?
Tabitha, excuse me. Tabitha, I just want to ask you, do you do these editing while you're taking the picture or after you've taken the picture?
This is after you take the picture. You cannot find these functions when you are taking a photo. This is only in your photo gallery. So after you take the picture.
Tabitha?
Yes.
Do you have to hit done
let's say if you do vibrance, do you have
Uh-huh.
to hit done? And then if you hit another function, do you have to hit done again, like saturation?
So no, it's a one thing. So you could add as much vibrance, then saturation, and then
And
hit
then,
done. Yeah,
okay,
it's
great.
gonna save where you put it.
Okay, thank you.
Tabitha,
Yes.
there is like the one where it does enhancements. When the light, when it's blue, this kind of like a magic wand.
Yes.
When it's blue, is it making the changes, enhancing, or is it done? How do I know when the process is done?
So, okay. You should click on the wand. So for me, with my phone that I have, I think it's because I'm in dark mode. So I don't have the blue like you're saying. But blue means then it's on. But even though you turned it on, you do have to hit the word done to save it, Grace.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, let me just go over another thing, that sharpness and definition. So why do people use sharpness and definition? This is going to make your photo a bit clearer, less grainier, kind of more HD. Like if you want to see the person's pores on their face, you can add sharpness to it. However, too much sharpen, especially with when there's people in the photo, is going to look too high definition, that they kind of wash out their color and it looks a bit strange. So if you are going to add sharpness to make your photo a bit more high definition, don't go too far. Unless your photo is blurry, then you can go a bit higher in your sharpness, but you kind of want to stay in a nice range of 30 or 40. This would work better when there's subjects in the photo. You can't really see too much with the PowerPoint, but as I am going higher, there's a bit more, I guess, you can't really tell with the flowers. It would have to be a person in the photo so you can see the difference when you add sharpness to it. Same thing with definition. It's going to give it a much more HD. It's just that it's focusing on the foreground instead of the background. Also, vignette was one of the definitions. So I want you to see what happens to the photo. A focus on the four corners of the photo. Do you see that the four corners are becoming darker, but the middle of the image stays bright? That is what vignette does. It adds a little bit of shadow and darkness to the corner, kind of creating a border effect to it. And if you drag it to the left, it's gonna do the same exact thing, but now the corners have a lot of exposure to it. It's a bit too bright, kind of washed out the image, but they're both adding a kind of a border to these corners, whether it's dark or whether you want the effect to be very bright and white. Does anybody have questions on that?
It's Grace. With the vignette and those choices, do you find that the same place where you would find like the saturation, the dark?
Yes,
and,
yes. This is all in the same. This is all in the same place.
And is vignette one of your favorite?
Well, I think it depends on the aesthetic. I usually do the darker borders to kind of give your subject to be in the focus while everything else around you is dark.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it is a personal favorite. Like on Instagram, people use it a lot.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Let's see. Let's go over warmth and tint. So warmth and tint is going to change the temperature of the photo. It's going to make it more orange or more blue tone. So that was already a pre-installed filter with the iPhone. However, you can now change it and make it as much orange or blue as you want. So I'm in warmth right now. And if I move it higher, which actually makes it very pretty for this photo, you can see it's adding a bit orange tone to the photo. And I think it actually works well with this flower photo. And then if I drag it to the left, you can see now it's a more bluish tone to the filter. It kind of looks like a too blue. I mean, it kind of depends on your personal preference. I kind of like it more with the orange tone, but it can work well with both. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Twilight, but it kind of gives like a twilight filter to it when you add it very blue, a bluish tone to it. Same thing with tint. It is also going to change the temperature. A tint is going to have a more purple if you bring it to the right. So instead of orange, it kind of gives a purple feel to it. And then to the left, it's going to bring a more greenish filter. So tint has purple and green. Warm has orange and blue to it. So it kind of depends on what colors you want to stand out in your photo. So you can see green can also be a good option here. It's making the photo more livelier, like if it's just been bloomed with the flowers. So green could be a good option, but I don't think purple would work too well with this photo. Anyone have questions on that?
So really the tint and the saturation are the same thing then? The warmth and the tint?
Yeah, the warmth and the tint are the same. It's just two different colors. Do you want orange and blue, or do you want purple and green?
Okay, thank you. I just learned. That's great to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay, so I'm just gonna also visually show the crop so you can see how I do it. And then I'm gonna answer Susan's question in the chat. So I'm in crop right now. And you can see I have 4 corners, and I could just drag any of the 4 corners. And now this would be my new image, very zoomed in of the plant. And if I just hit the word cancel, it will, go back to the regular photo. And then remember at the top left-hand corner, we have our flip and rotate. So if I click on it all the way in the top left-hand corner, the flower photo just flipped. And if I click on the icon right next to it, I have my rotate. So it could be upside down, it could be a landscape or a portrait. All the way on the right-hand side, which I didn't go over, but on the right-hand side, you have your different automatic cropping functions. So you could see when I clicked on it, it's pre-made cropping filters. So it's your phone saying, how do you want your phone to crop it? Do you want it to be in square, or do you want it to be in a wallpaper? And freeform should mean that you can still use it by grabbing one of the corners, using one finger and grabbing it whatever you like. I don't really use that button because I like to do it myself. I like to crop the pictures the way I want, but that button is there if you do want a specific dimension with square or wallpaper. Any questions on that? Okay, so let me see. Susan said,
Tabitha, how do you
yes.
crop it? How do you crop your photos yourself without that tool?
So to crop it without yourself, we want to find the square icon at the bottom right-hand corner. So we have like a little sun, 3 circles, and then there's a square at all the way at the bottom. When we click on it, we can grab any of the 4 corners of our picture and drag it wherever we want to crop.
No, but you just said you don't use that. You like to do it yourself.
No, I said I don't use this button, which is the one at the top.
Oh, I see.
I do it my own, which is the square button at the bottom. I don't click the button at the top. So all the way at the bottom, there's a square icon. That's what I use, and I just crop it the way I like. The one at the top is your phone doing it on its own and asking you, how do you want to crop it? So Susan asked in the chat that sometimes websites have a size limit for their pictures, and sometimes it says that her photo is too big to upload, that the photo must have a compression ratio. So how does she change her photo size? So for example, is Susan still here? Yes. Hi, Susan. So sometimes when you take too high definition photos, or if you upload too many pictures at one time in an email, it's not going to let you because the file is too big. So for example, one way you can fix that is adding pictures to a folder and sending to whoever you were sending that picture to, you're sending them the folder. And to send folders to someone, you would have to use something called Google Drive, or you have to use the iCloud if you want to send multiple photos to somebody at one time. If it's just one photo, Susan, that's saying it's too big, you're gonna have to, one thing you can do is actually crop the photo. Cropping the photo can actually reduce the size of the image. Another thing you can also do is you can actually look in your phone's setting and see whether or not you're using a very high function to take photos. Questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I am in settings, photos, and cameras. And on the camera, there is the grid, and I have that on. And keep normal photo, that's on. However, my question is, I can't see anything that says high efficiency.
Are you on an iPad or iPhone?
Well, right now I'm on an iPod, an Apple iPod.
iPod or iPhone?
Yeah, well, it kind of looks like an iPhone, but you can't make calls.
I would have to then see the model of what you have, because that's probably why you don't see it. Because I'm doing specifically for iPhones that are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
So what you have is something up to date.
Yes, correct.
It's upgrade.
Yes.
Oh.
So some older iPhones are not going to be able to take pictures in 4K or 1080 because they didn't have that when the phone came out. Also, it depends on how many cameras you have at the back of your phone as well.
Oh, you have many. I have one.
Yeah. Right. So the higher the different cameras, mine? Right? I see yours.
So that's
another thing that yes, that's another thing that changes the qualities of your image and the zoom functions of your phone. So the more cameras, the different types of quality that you get in a shot when you're recording a video, taking a photo, and also how far you can zoom. So 3 cameras means I could zoom very far out.
Right. Oh, then that's good ammunition for me saying to my husband, you know, honey, I need to get a new iPhone.
No.
This is old.
No, you can keep what you have. I'm just explaining why you may not see it.
No, well, the thing is, this, rather than walk around with my iPad, this is easier to put in my pocket.
Right.
When I walk and take pictures.
Right. Well,
So
yeah, I mean, the
sense.
regular one camera is perfectly fine, right? You don't have to go ahead and switch your phone. Any other questions anyone has?
Tabitha, you
Yes.
know, Tabitha, I just keep thinking, you know, we've come a long way. You know, I remember when we had to take pictures, you know, from the camera, then we had to bring it to get it developed. And then you never knew what the picture was going to look like. And so
yes.
definitely, we have come a long way.
We have.
Thank you for telling us about it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, indeed.
Now iPhones can, you know, record movies. A lot of people shoot movies with their phones now. So that's another thing that's happening.